Joined in studio now by Zwelinzima Vavi from SAFTU. We are just coming out of those visuals, so just to get some of your inputs on land expropriation without compensation. Where does SAFTU stand on that?
Firmly for it.
Firmly for it.
No debate about it. Firmly for expropriation without any kind of compensation. And for reasons that everybody know, and some people won't deny about it. We were conquered. There has been colonialization, there have been imperialism, and in addition to that, there was 40 years of apartheid. What's the debate? The debate is that should have happened before 1994 is how to ensure that the land is equitably distributed to all South Africans, taking into consideration, and that's where expropriation without compensation comes from, taking into consideration that the large majority of the peoples of this country were dispossessed through the barrel of the gun. That's full stop. That's our position. And it goes without saying that we support that. But at the same time, we do not blame the Constitution for the lack of progress in relation to the question of addressing the land hunger on the part of our people. No. Our government have simply failed on one of the most fundamental issues of transformation, the land question. They themselves admit that whereas their target was to redistribute 30% of the land in the first 5 years of our democracy, they could only manage to distribute about 10% in 20 years of our democracy. Now that's absolutely disaster. And what worries us more is that government is not inspiring confidence. Of the land, the 10% that have been redistributed, they say 70–80% of it is lying fallow, meaning that it's not used. It has become flowers. Wheat have grown to my height. And it's wasted property. And as a result, if that trend continues, we can satisfy the first objective of addressing the colonial and apartheid era, but we may end up in serious problem with poverty and displacement of 1 million workers who depend, 1.3 million workers who depends on land. And it will make our people to say Faro was better than today, yes, because there was food security at that time. It's been threatened by our actions now to redress. And that's why we've got to say, we've got to address the mediocrity, the inefficiency, the ineptness of the government. But at the same time, we've got to address the justice questions, the issue of the fact that our people were dispossessed, and 24 years into democracy, those who designed the Native Lands Act of 1913 are still smiling, because nothing has changed. What they've created as an overall architect remains in place.
It still stands. Well, Mr. Vavi, we actually want to steer you in another direction. Just to give our viewers a bit of a background, if you have just joined us, you're tuned into a news live, actually coming to you live from our studios here in Midrand, Johannesburg, and you are watching Afro World View. To give you just a bit of background, Organised Labour is gearing up for May Day celebrations as role players debate the proposed national minimum wage. Now, some unions have strongly opposed the national minimum wage, which would see workers earning about 20 rands an hour. Meanwhile, President Ramaphosa says he understands concerns about the amount, but it should be taken as a good start in the right direction. Well, still with us in studio is Mr. Zwelinzima Vavi. Now, just speaking about the May Day celebrations, first of all, what is SAFTU's plans?
Well, we have a National May Day. The main celebrations are taking place in Bloemfontein, in the Vista Nelson Mandela Hall. All workers in Free State, and with us workers from Gauteng, Northwest, Northern Cape, to join that National May Day. It will be addressed by the President of SAFTU, Comrade Mark Shabalala. We have another May Day celebration in Port Elizabeth I will be going down, in fact, immediately after this interview. I'm flying down to Port Elizabeth and to join Comrade Ivan Jim. We are addressing that May Day in Port Elizabeth tomorrow. There's a rally in Cape Town. There's a rally in in Durban, there's a rally in Seshego, in Polokwane. That's what we have a plan. You know, we're celebrating our first anniversary, and already we can have 5, 6 rallies across the country. That's a very good start. Mm-hmm. We have so many things positive to celebrate in the first anniversary of the Federation. It's unbelievable what we have succeeded to achieve in just short 12 months of our existence. And we're excited. The mood tomorrow is that of celebration. We're celebrating the fact that we succeeded to bring back almost 500 workers who were dismissed here in Midrand, whilst it was still an independent council, for raising a flag against corruption. Those workers are now being integrated into Johannesburg. We are celebrating that we brought back to work 700 workers who were dismissed by PRASA after 5 years. We are celebrating the fact that we have a labor appeals court decision that says it is unfair to continue employing workers for more than 3 months without a good reason. We are in the Constitutional Court now fighting the labor brokers. We have no doubt that we will win in the Constitutional Court too. We are celebrating the integration and the insourcing of workers in most of the universities at a 10,000 minimum wage. We led those struggles through and in partnership with the students and with the Outsourcing Must Fall movement. And as a result, hundreds and thousands of families have a better life as a result of our effort. We are celebrating the fact that we're now engaging directly with the Department of Health to make sure that the community health care workers are integrated, are insourced back into the Department of Health, so that this creation of a second-class, very poorly paid workers employed on contract through this community health care program is ended, and that everybody can be brought back into the Department of Health. We are celebrating that no one can still mount the type of demonstration that South Africa saw on the 25th, where we're mobilizing workers against the structural poverty created by apartheid and colonialism, in rejection of the 20 rand national minimum wage being imposed, taken away on the other hand through the VAT, the fuel levy, the so-called sin taxes, and the imposition of the sugar tax. We have so much, and that's why we will be in such a beyond mood tomorrow, because we're raising the hopes of workers again. Workers have a reason to believe that the bursting into sin of SAFTU is creating a completely new environment. The days where the employers had such a nice holidays have come to an end. It's going to be battle, and the battle is the battle for economic transformation that will benefit those that have been marginalized over the past 24 years. It's a battle for the real, genuine freedom for everybody, particularly for our young people who are seeing 61% unemployment rate, those who are below the age of 25. It's a battle for our women, whose unemployment rate is about 40% as we speak. It's a battle for Africans, whose unemployment is also about 40%. The new struggle have just begun, in our view. The days of sweetheart federations and cozy relations with the employers in the cigarette and cigar smoked filled rooms is gone. The holiday is over. SAFTU is here to shake the fundamental foundations of the status quo that have kept the black majority into poverty, where 14 million of our people go to bed every night, every day on empty stomach, where 26% of our population is trapped in degrading poverty, and when 55%, can you believe it, 55% of our people lives on less than 944 rands on a month. And that's why we have become the most unequal society in the world, because as we speak, 3 individuals, 3 multi-billionaires in this country have a wealth that is equal to 42% of the wealth of the population. And that just 1% is wealthy, 50% of the population. That must come to an end. We are just sick and tired of freedom for some. And we're tired of turning around of our slogan, such as a better life for all into a better life for some. We're tired of turning the international slogans of workers, such as an injury to one is an injury to all, into an injury to one is an opportunity to the other. The game is going to change. The 25th of April signals that our people are up to here of hearing freedom on the radio that is not impacting on their lives.
Well, Mr. Vavi, we know that you do reject the minimum wage of 20 rands per hour. If you can just give us a ballpoint figure, what do you as SAFTU think is a decent living wage?
A decent living wage is not even the 12,500 that the Marikana workers were massacred for and brutally killed for. You can't live on 12,500. Sitting here, that's an amount that will make us walk away if we were to be offered that. 12,500 won't give you a decent house, won't give you proper transport to go to work, won't give you a decent, nutritious meal every day. It won't make you to even take your kids to a bioscope or out in the soccer game and all of that. That's what, however, workers are inspired by. The Marikana martyrs represent a change of the game in relation to the battle for a new wage structure in the country. I was just reading now that another economist from the left have made a calculation to say, Gerald Isaacs, have made a calculation that says, in our today's world, a worker will need at least 4,700 just to keep the water above the water. That's still very conservative because the University of Cape Town, as way back as 2014, calculated that a worker will require a 5,400 rands just to keep the head above the water. Why is the government that is talking about radical economic transformation, that is advocating a concept of a better life for all, suddenly turns around and say millions and millions of workers must continue to be trapped in poverty, borrow from Peter in order to pay Paul as they get money to go to transport, go to work and starve on a pub with beans every day, and then in order to produce wealth that is not being shared by everybody in the country. We have news for the president and those that have signed this sweetheart deal in Nedley. If you believe that this have a support, as you claim to be in the majority still, why don't you march and get workers to support 20 rands, 18 rands, 15 rands, and insulting 11 rands an hour? Let's see. We have already marched and rejected, and hundreds and thousands, if not millions, of workers stayed away from work. The impact was felt across the length and the breadth of the country, led by a very small, in comparison, young but militant, independent trade union federation. Can they march and get people to support 20 rands an hour? Can we see?
You've mentioned the VAT increase and also the sugar tax and also the fuel levy going up, and this is all really have a big impact on people in South Africa. So how would you take the national minimum wage and also say that, listen, this is what our people need? Because that is what Kiel also asked you. What is your minimum wage that you propose? This is what people need to get by, to buy food, to actually get to work, and to also have a bit of relaxation. Just maybe a ballpark figure, if you mind.
No. We're asking for 12,500, and we're not going to compromise on that. We will negotiate with anybody who have the interest of our workers at heart. But please don't insult us. Don't even come and propose 20 rand an hour unless you are prepared to give it to your dogs and see whether they can survive for a single month on that. These guys who have dogs on medical aid, way above those figures, have the audacity to turn around and say workers must live on the 20 rand an hour. We are not looking at just 20 rand because they say you are reckless, you are populist, 20 rand is reasonable, it will liberate 6 million workers. Nonsense. The question that is not being asked is why 24 years into democracy did we have a country so rich as South Africa, having 50% of its workers earning below 3,400? Where was the trade union movement sleeping? Where was the liberators of our people? Whilst we're mentioning those figures, the guys on the other side of the river, we see what Deloitte accountants told us some 2 years ago, that the first 100 listed companies in the JSE paid their CEOs a 17.97 million rands a year, which amounts to 69,000 rands a day, or 8,600 rands a single hour. The same people have a gall to say to workers, this country is poor, but it's not poor for us. We want to compete with the best paid CEOs in America, but you must compete with the worst paid workers in the sweatshop economies. We are tired of living in one country but being in two countries. One country reserved for the victims of apartheid and colonialism, largely black, the face of poverty, unemployment, and inequalities. One other country, the face of the former white oppressors, where largely, not everybody, largely they dying of diseases associated with overeating, whilst others are dying of diseases associated with poverty. We can't play that game anymore. Those who want to continue to sign sweeter deals can do that. SAFTU is not part of them. We are here to rock the boat.
Well,
and
12,500
tomorrow we
rand.
continue to rocking the boat on May Day celebrations.
SAFTU has said it right here live on Afro World. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Vavi. As you mentioned, you are going to be heading to Bloemfontein.
No, I'm heading to Port Elizabeth.
Port Elizabeth, right. President's Bloemfontein.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So 5 different rallies taking place tomorrow are being held by SAFTU as they celebrate their 1-year anniversary. As they've mentioned, 12,500 rand is what they believe would be a decent minimum wage.